Yes, you read the title of this video right. Illusion is back. But, well, not back. They are back in the same sense as if the Christopher Nolan Batman were to suddenly say he was going to retire, and then he just comes back 3 weeks later dressed as the Batman from Adam West instead. The tech they use is quite similar. We all pretty much know it's the same person, but they just act like it's a completely different entity doing all of the work now. Now, before you think I'm going crazy, let me explain for you to see. A lot has happened during the last 2 weeks that I was a little busy during. As you can see, my background is not the same as usual, and this is because I'm showing people around Osaka. So, before we actually get into the details of all of this, let me just give my thanks to the people who actually let me know about the situation and explain quite a bunch of stuff, since, as you can see, due to the fact that I'm running around a lot, I haven't had the time to actually follow up with all of this. But once they mentioned it all to me, I did my own digging as well, and so there's a lot that we have to talk about today. My English, some stuff may get butchered, and I'm apologizing now in advance in case I do butcher your names, trying to enunciate all of it. I can't think of a better word to use. So on Discord, thank you to Rosio for actually mentioning all of this to me as well. On YouTube, in order of the chronological order with which they actually reached out to me for care, I thank you for letting me know about this situation as well. Sigma Sequoia and Pyromissile. There's a line on top of the S, I'm not sure how best to pronounce it. I hope I'm pronouncing it right, but thank you to the two of you as well for the information you provided, because it really did give me a better understanding of the situation at hand. Love y'all, thanks for the help as well, like legitimately so. But anyway, let's get into the details of the situation itself. So let me just give a quick introduction of the company as well as a recap of the situation at hand for people for whom this is the first video they're seeing. So the company we're talking about today is i1 Plus, which runs Illusion Studio, responsible for the creation of many of the biggest adult games out there, including Koikatsu and Honey Select. Within Japan, they are known as one of the big four in the adult game industry. No, they're not up there with KPMG and Deloitte, that's a different big four. That one inspects your financials. This one gives you men's health and inspects your cum instead, I suppose. I feel like it's a little late to say this now, but if you're under the age of 18, don't look them up. Instead, go watch my other video on the lowest rated game on Famitsu. That might be a little more up to your speed. In that video, I do a 5 minutes craft making a golf club that basically is a nunchuck, so maybe that might be a bit interesting instead. But for everyone else, let's just get to the timeline of the event. So on July the 14th, Studio Illusion announced that they'll be ceasing all activities and be ending sales of all of their products by the end of September. Needless to say, it was a very sad moment. The skies darkened, tears began to rain down from the heavens, and many of us were actually sad that such a big company was gonna go, and that was where it ended at the time. That is, until 7 days later, when on the Twitter account Project I-18, there was suddenly a sign of activity. There was one single tweet there, which says test in katakana. For those of you who are wondering why this is important, I have not gone crazy yet. Okay, as you can see, there is no tinfoil hat being worn yet. Project I-18 was the Twitter account that they were using back during the development of iShoujo as a way to disseminate information about the updates to the development of the game at the time. Back then, because the title was still in development, rather than calling it iShoujo, it was called Project I instead. Hence, you're seeing the similarities here. And so this Twitter account was used in an official capacity by their company themselves to disseminate information about a new title they were releasing at the time. And then now, all of a sudden, all of that information is gone, which, considering the fact that they were trying to end sales for all of their products, maybe it made sense that they wanted to wipe off all history about it as well. But the fact that there was actually suddenly a post a week later on an account that had been completely wiped, sign of things to come. Because 7 days later, on the 20th of July, another tweet was made to the account showing some, well, very decently big plot, as well as a teaser saying that more information would be announced on the 4th of August as well. And sure enough, when the 4th of August came, there was a vomit of tweets on the same day, with the first one stating that they are forming a studio called ILLGames, with ILL being a short form for Innovation, Liberty, and Lovely. So, that games. The name's a little similar, which kind of another sign of more things that might have potentially been to come. And then they also announced that they were planning to release a new title on September the 1st called Honeycomb. Yeah, I suppose you could say that this new title of theirs is coming really soon. So the signs are already there that this is quite likely the same company to some extent. Whether or not there has been a lot of reorganization within the company itself, we can't really tell. But suffice to say that this is most likely the company themselves acting in some other form of capacity. So the issue with all of this is that there is no 100% verifiable way to do this, because there is no mention of the original company i1 Plus anywhere on the website, nor any form of linkages between this studio and the previous studio, other than the fact that they are reusing the Twitter account that the official Twitter had used in the past. But since unlike Illusion and i1 Plus, this new studio does not seem to have their address anywhere at all, it is a lot harder for us to verify whether or not they truly are the same company. However, it would seem that a lot of Japanese media sites, and I don't mean like Reddit and other Reddit detectives and stuff like that, I mean actual mainstream media have picked up on this as well, and are outright saying that this really is just Illusion being rebranded, which I know that Yahoo isn't really used in the rest of the world much anymore. It's a lot like Bing now, where only the biggest of degenerates are using it, so the information may not be the most credible. But within Japan, at the very least, Yahoo is still very widely used, especially by the older crowd, as a good source of information. And so the fact that they are willing to put their name on the line to make this claim also lends to the fact that there might be more to it that is just not being disclosed to the rest of us, like you and me. Because one thing you have to understand is that news agencies within Japan have a lot of pull, kind of like with how during the case of the ILLGames versus Konami lawsuit, the newspaper Toyo Keisai actually managed to pull up information about the court proceedings and all that that was not available to the rest of the public. So likely that there might actually be something going on that they know that the rest of us are not, which is why they are also speaking the definitive, and which is also why I would feel quite confident in saying it is extremely likely that this is really just them rebranding. But that said, all of this is great for everyone, right? The company is back, they're making more games. It's almost like all of this had never happened at this point. So why is this video still going on? Well, it's not all great for most people still. And just hear me out for a second. Because among those who had tested out the demo, particularly the models who have created content for both Koikatsu as well as Honey Select, as well as their other previous titles, many of them have pointed out that a lot like Room Girl, this new title has a lot of anti-modding systems built in to make lives of the people who are trying to mod the game a lot more difficult. And on top of that is the fact that the title, a lot like Room Girl, has shifted from using mono to using IL to CPP. And thank you to Jonathan Barton for pointing this out. And the render pipeline, I believe, instead of using the original built-in one, they have shifted to using HDRP, which is the high definition render pipeline instead. So a lot of the content that has been produced for Koikatsu as well as Honey Select in the past, even if the anti-modding implementations that are in place that have made it a lot harder for people to mod the game in the first place are actually worked around. There's also the fact that unlike with previous titles like from Koikatsu to Koikatsu Sunshine, where you could easily take your mod, put it in, maybe make some slight adjustments to fit it with the current game and have it work. With this new title, you're unlikely to be able to do that, so a lot of things are going to have to be redone from scratch, which means a lot of effort on the part of the modders. And this is something I saw in the discussions in the comments as well, which is, I do agree with the fact that eventually modders will be able to work around all of this if they really wanted to put their heart and soul into it. The issue is not so much whether they can, but whether it's worth it to do it. Because even if they manage to get around the systems put in place to prevent modding, they would still have to make their mods from scratch again, quite likely, which is a lot of effort on the parts of the modders who, for the past 5, 6, maybe more years, they have been using the same base for writing most of their work. And so unless they actually manage to make the upcoming title very significantly different, which at the current moment it does seem to look like just Honey Select but with Koikatsu's art instead, unless they can actually make it different enough, there is a very real possibility that many people may not make the switch and purchase the game as well. Because one thing you have to understand, and this is something I learned from Sigma Sequoia as well, is that there are many people out there who are also using Koikatsu as well as Honey Select in many ways beyond just making something to cum to. There are many game devs who are using it for mockups of characters as well, or to just create these scenes. Some even use it to create comics as well, outright, and I think I've seen some of those on certain bit more sus websites as well. But suffice to say, people are using their tools for a lot more than just playing the game and enjoying the modded content within the context of a game in of itself. It has become a commercial software more so than a game for many people out there as well. So if because of this, mods are not gonna be a very common thing for a very long time, and the game doesn't give enough of a change for people to want to make that jump, we might see the amount of sales that the upcoming title Honeycomb actually get be significantly lower than something like Honey Select or Koikatsu, because people who purchase this to use it as a tool to produce their own content as well might find it to be not as worthwhile to swap at the moment. What might be even more interesting, especially the all of you creators out there who have been using the previous titles such as Koikatsu and Honey Select in its character studio to either create character or scene mockups, or to even create entire comics out of all of that, is the fact that they have also announced something called Create Studio. It's meant to be create, yeah, that the katakana at the top actually does say creato, so this is the Create Studio. I mean, it's a small company for mostly locals, so this was eventually going to happen. It's just that it's kind of funny that it happened with the major system itself like this. Maybe it's intentional, maybe I shouldn't be laughing, but more importantly than the name of the thing is the fact that the description of it seems to imply that it's a diorama setting that you can use to place characters, objects, and poses and all of that, and have the characters pose and use all of this either in the recording of a video or in the creation of pictures in what would be a viewer mode in the future. And that sounds a lot like the character studio, right? But what is interesting is the fact that at the very bottom of the page here, it says to look forward to their software that isn't games, which, unless they're implying that this is not the thing they're talking about in the part where it's actually featured in, it does seem like they might be separating out the new title's equivalent of the creator character studio from the entire game itself, and they'll be selling it as a separate software which people could use as its own software where you could import the characters, but that would be meant more for people to use in a way that could end up being commercial, therefore ensuring that their main revenue stream is not put at the same level of risk. That, and when you include the fact that now they are trying to prevent modding, as well as the fact that they're telling people not to do it or they'll disable your access to the thing somehow, I don't know how they would actually do it. It could really go in any direction from here, so I won't spend too much time speculating on what it can be, since it could really be anything under the sun. In fact, it could even be like an NFT minter for all we know. That said, what I do hope to see from this software is that it will be compatible with the current title and maybe even compatible with the titles from the previous very dead company that existed. Who knows, maybe the cards will be usable. That would be cool. I highly doubt it would be, but it would be interesting if it was. Would be interesting to see this specific thing being less mod unfriendly, I guess, so that people who want to mod in even more stuff to use in their mockups or in their comics would be able to add all of that in so that they can continue to produce the content they want to. The fact that they're separating this and releasing it as its own studio thing really makes it feel like they are keenly aware of what a big part of their user base also wants out of the software. But yeah, at the very least, for all of you creators out there, this might be something to look forward to. The game itself, maybe not so much, since it does not sound like it's gonna have the things that much of the user base also wants from it. But at the very least, it does seem like there is something on the horizon that they are releasing which might appeal to the other parts of their audience aside from the people who genuinely want to play the game as well. Then there's also the tinfoil hat theory I put out in the previous video where I speculated that it might be due to some legal troubles with other companies. That I feel like actually might carry a little bit more weight than I thought it did at the time. I'm not saying it's the main cause or anything, because we really won't know, and I don't think we'll ever know now that the company is back, so there isn't too much reason to go too deep into it. But there was something very strange with the way that they worded some of the things on the website. So as you can see, this is the studio's website, ILLGames.jp. This is also a link on their Twitter, so if you do not believe me, you can go there and check it out for yourself. This is the bottom of the page because I just want to home in on the important points to this video, and that is that at the very bottom here, you can see that they don't really have much going on at all. This is very different from back during Illusion's time, where at the very bottom you have the sitemap with the explanation of who the studio is, the types of products they have, as well as the support contact information and all that jazz. Now you don't really have much, and it's understandable at this point since the origin of the company is a little contentious. But what is important is that at the very bottom here, you have the user's privacy information thing, the one that every game has, as well as the end user agreement. But with the end user agreement for the website as an overall, mind you, this is not the end user agreement for a game, but for their IPs and everything in its entirety, right? If you click on it here, as you can see, it's very long. And among these things, there are some that just seem very silly. I don't know why this is there. Like you have one here, which is like things like, please do not harm the sensitivities of the young and underage by showing them products made using our applications, which that's understandable. You don't want to ruin the minds of growing kids by showing them titties the size of the moon and then telling them that this is normal. You also have things like, please do not commit fraud, which, gee, thanks, ILLGames. I didn't know that fraud was illegal until you told me. And thank you so much for telling me this. I'll be sure to keep it in mind. And then you have the more important points, which are, do not use our product for any form of commercial purpose. And the other one, slightly lower down over here, is stating that they do not want you to modify the product in any way, including the changing of the data in it, editing, reverse compiling, reverse engineering, basically everything. They do not want you to be modifying the product in any way, shape or form. Usually when it comes to stuff like this, it will be either on the game's website or in the end user agreement that will be in the click wrap in game that you have to scroll all the way down to the bottom and click I agree, that most people don't read unless you're the one guy who played Baldur's Gate 3, which seems to hint, to me at least, that there might be something more going on here. Because, like I mentioned before, I've worked in quite a few different game companies within Japan, including some gacha game companies as well. And those companies tend to be the ones that are under the most fire legally, and so they tend to have the most detailed end user agreement when it comes to stuff like this, because they have a lot more they need to protect themselves from than the original or standard game development company that makes consumer games instead. And one thing I have to say is that even among all of those companies, I have never seen anything like this before. The only company I've actually found that has something even remotely similar to this is probably Alicesoft. And when it comes to Alicesoft's case, it's very different, the type of content that's in this agreement of how you can use the IPs that they possess in your own creative works. It largely focuses on what parts of their games you're allowed to put on stream, so you can't put the R18 parts in the stream, but you can stream the rest of the game. How you can use their works to create your own doujin works, so anything indie that you want to make, how you can put it into those works. So if you create it completely on your own and don't borrow CG from their game, it's fine and stuff like this. And they also talk about how you shouldn't monetize the open source free versions of some of their older titles that are open for everyone to download and play whenever they want. So don't take their work and sell it outright. They don't talk about how you're allowed to earn money off your own ways of using their work. So even then, it doesn't come close to the ILLGames level of strictness in their end user use case rights agreement. And one thing you have to understand with this is that most game companies, particularly in Japan, don't put things into words like this unless there is some very specific legal reason they're trying to do it, either to legally protect themselves or to legally come down upon another party for infringing on their works, to make it easier for them to ensure that they can get back at that company as well. And in this case, with the way it's written, it really does appear to be like they're trying to protect themselves or cover their bases from future legal ramifications at the very least. Because through their putting all of this on the website and even stating that they will be willing to terminate the service provided of their applications to people who infringe on this, and the fact that they're trying to make modding a lot more difficult, but coming from a company that has for the longest of times been okay with people modding their stuff and that has never had something like this, it does seem a little odd, this 180 shift. Unless there was some external pressure that was forcing them into this situation, maybe something related to Illusion Studios that resulted in some legal issues that they are trying to ensure does not happen to this studio as well. It's all a theory. A game theory. game company theory, I guess, in this case, but it does seem like a very real possibility that that could have been one of the factors alongside the multitude of others that had led to the reason why Illusion had honestly initially closed down. And it also might give us some level of understanding as to the potential reason why the company seems to have gone in at 180 with regards to allowing modding with their titles, as well as going as far as to put it in the end user agreement, which is for some reason on the main page, as if it's meant for people, particularly those involved in the legal field, to check through. Because this ain't the kind of thing that most normal people will look at, but a lawyer might. And so that's part of the reason why I do feel like that tinfoil hat theory might have had a little more weight now looking at everything, although not like it matters. It seems like the company is back and they are doing well again. We'll need to see how they're gonna do going forward, because odds are, if this continues with the level of strictness and anti-modding that persists in this as well, that this title might do the same as Room Girl, which hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully it does better. There's still a lot of the title that we have not seen yet, so we can only wait and see if the rest of the content that they will announce for it might make up enough for people to be willing to purchase into this, enough for the company to feel like they can continue operations as well. One other thing as well, and I feel like I should have worded this better in the previous video as well, is the fact that this whole situation doesn't necessarily have to be caused by any one specific factor alone. In fact, the more I look at it now, especially, it does feel like all the different perspectives that were thrown out at the time, the different potential reasons, they could, many of them, be actually something that were concurrently happening, and that it was due to the amalgamation of all of these reasons that they decided to end the company in the first place. Because even if it were true that the people at the top decided to put an end to the studio, that doesn't necessarily mean that the people at the bottom would not want to continue it, which might be why this happened in the way that it did, and why they do not tie this current company back to i1 Plus nor to Illusion Studios either, due to the fact that this might have been something that had split off from the original. It's possible. And the people at the top might have also harbored in them the fear that the company could not grow, which is why it led to all of this. And it also might be due to the fact that they had someone clamp down on them. That said, that's all I really have to say for this video. I think I've spent like 3 hours trying to record all of this and compose all of my thoughts while speaking. Being in a completely different environment is not helping with that, as you can see. But I believe most of the information that I needed to get out has been included in the recording of this all, so that should be enough from me, all of that you see right now. If you found this video interesting, do feel free to leave a like and subscribe. Once again, I have a Discord if you want to come in and chill. My schedule for what videos I'll be releasing in the future are there as well as with my stream schedule, so all of that is there if you want to see, if you want to chill with us. Thanks to you guys for everything. It helped a lot with the creation of this videos. But until then, I'll be heading off now. So, take care and it's over there. Bye-bye.